What's up, y'all? I'm Lincoln Infield, and welcome to episode number 5 of Is It the Destination or the Ride, which is the Carolinas Full Throttle Magazine interview series. Today, I'm here with Tyler Stiles of the Tom McGrath Motorcycle Law Group to talk about the firm that rides. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing well, man. Doing well. I appreciate you meeting me this morning. Now, this is your Raleigh location, but you guys have other locations in the Carolinas, correct?
That's correct. We have 2 offices down in South Carolina, and then we've also got offices in Richmond and Newport News, Virginia, and in Savannah, Georgia.
Right. But, if you have potential clients or something like that, you will go out and meet them, right?
That is correct. Yeah, I'm on my way out to meet 2 today, actually.
All right. Well, then let's get down to business.
Let's.
Okay, Tom McGrath's Motorcycle Law Group has a reputation of defending motorcycle rights as well as injured motorcyclists. How did the firm get that reputation?
So when Tom started the firm, he was a Commonwealth's attorney in Virginia, which what we would call a district attorney. He was a prosecutor. At the time, in the 80s, I believe, you were allowed to actually work as a Commonwealth's attorney and then maintain a private practice on the side. A lot of guys did personal injury or some family law, drafting wills and estates, that kind of thing. Tom got a reputation among specifically the clubs as a guy who would give you a real fair shake as a prosecutor. So they started bringing other issues to him. The big one being motorcycles weren't allowed in the HOV lanes in Virginia at that time. So Tom saw a real opportunity to step up and kind of represent for the community, the motorcycle community, do something that was beneficial to them outside of them needing help in a personal injury context or whatever it was. Ended up getting the HOV lanes opened up, and from there sort of realized that there was a need in this community for representation on that kind of thing, which has always been a real central tenet of the firm here, that we're going to be a part of the motorcycle community and we're going to serve the community even when we don't stand to make a profit from it. That's why a lot of our attorney's fees go to our lobbying efforts. We lobby free of charge in all of the states that we maintain practice in. So I am the registered lobbyist with CBA ABATE in North Carolina. We have our own lobbying organization in Virginia called VCOM. We work hand in hand with SC ABATE, and then we'll be doing the same thing down in Georgia here shortly.
All right. Well, how did you get started with the Motorcycle Law Group defending injured motorcyclists?
So I got a motorcycle back in law school from my dad. It was a Sportster, and I was riding that all over Raleigh, Southern Wake County, a bunch of Johnston County, just kind of clearing my head in law school and everything. So once I got out and I was in kind of my early career of practice and everything, we saw that they were hiring at the Motorcycle Law Group. One of the prerequisites for working here was you had to have a motorcycle endorsement. You had to have an active North Carolina law license. So I thought it was worth taking a look at, throwing my application, my hat in the ring. As I learned more about the firm, the lobbying efforts, and the efforts to support the community outside of just representing injured people, I thought it was a really good fit, and apparently they felt the same, because here I am.
All right, now when did you start with the Tom McGrath Motorcycle Law Group?
I was brought on in 2018, kind of in a support role for Liz Sorrell, the partner that was running all the North Carolina business at that time. I've been running the North Carolina stuff more or less on my own for the last couple of years now. So been here since 2018, coming up on 4 full years in a couple of months here.
All right, so the Tom McGrath Motorcycle Law Group has a big hand in the lobbying for motorcycle rights here in North Carolina. Are there any issues that you and your firm are working on currently?
So 2022 is a short session, which means no legislation will get advanced that's not directly related to budget. I always kind of consider these our defense years, just to make sure that there aren't bills that are going to affect the way that we ride or modify our bikes. If there are, we want to make sure that we're in there. We have a seat at the table and our voices are heard related to those. As far as the next long session, which will be 2023, and bills that are going to be advanced, CBA ABATE is looking at one of the more important ones, I think, is an equal access bill, which would allow motorcyclists access to any parking structure that's built with tax funds. If you've ever been to some of the bigger cities, some of the municipal parking decks and things, the Asheville, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, Winston-Salem, Greensboro areas, there will be no motorcycle signs on those. Our position is that if those buildings were made with public tax dollars that we've paid into them, we have to be granted access to those. We're not asking for, specific motorcycle designated parking. We just want access to the buildings. One of the other ones that we're looking into is we would like to start kind of taking people's temperature and possibly warming folks up at the General Assembly for lane filtering in North Carolina. It's something that's being explored in Virginia and Maryland right now, and several states east of California have started adopting it. So it is kind of coming this direction. I think we could be one of the first ones to adopt it on the East Coast. It would allow motorcycles to advance to the front of the line and stop traffic. One, to reduce congestion because North Carolina is getting busier, and two, it's a rider safety measure because it keeps us from being in the back of the line, potentially sandwiched between an inattentive driver and the car that's in front of them. And then one of the bills that we're going to be looking for this upcoming long session that I'm actually really excited about is CBA ABATE is responsible for the Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Program in North Carolina. We're one of the only states that has this curriculum that goes out and teaches driver's ed students how to watch out for motorcyclists. At its core, it is an anti-distracted driving or an attentive driving curriculum. We've taught, tens of thousands of driver's ed students to look out for motorcyclists. It is actually in the North Carolina laws that we have to teach them at least 1 hour of motorcycle safety and awareness curriculum. What we would like to do is get that curriculum introduced into diversionary programs. So drivers who have to go to driving school because they have had such a serious infraction or so many infractions that now they're being required to do driving school, we'd like to have that curriculum entered in there too, because obviously that's another big risk group. These are folks who need the additional remedial education. So it would be really, really beneficial, I think, and I think we would see a positive impact on rider crash statistics if we were able to get that curriculum in front of them. So that's what we've got coming up in 2023.
That's awesome. It really sounds like you guys have your hands full there as well. Lots of stuff coming up.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, I'm the registered state lobbyist with CBA ABATE. I work with the legislative director, Dave Terwilliger, previously Charlie Boone, and we're down there trying to make sure that riders' voices are heard at the General Assembly. Please think about coming out to our lobby day. We do typically every year, sometimes a little smaller on short sessions, but the long session years are important. We would encourage everybody to come out to that, whether or not they're a CBA member.
The Tom McGrath Motorcycle Law Group is the firm that rides. How do you guys keep up with that title?
So we try to do group rides together. At least every other year. We typically do a rider course in the spring with Motorcycle Riding Concepts up in Fairfax, Virginia. It's the police motorcycle course. We go up there, run through it all, usually on our personal bikes, but they have some available for us too if we want to do that. And then we've done some trips. We just went to Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona last year. Did kind of a Southwest trip. That one was supposed to be out to Washington State and back, but the wildfires kind of threw a wrench in our works and we couldn't decide where we were going to go. Wound up doing Moab, Grand Canyon, Sedona, Arizona, some northern New Mexico, southern Colorado stuff. It was really good. So try to just get out and do rides together. Definitely try to show up to events, do rides within our respective states. Show up at the chili cook-offs and the toy runs and poker runs and whatever else we've got going on. Just be out there and let people know that we're out here. We're also a member of this community. We know what it's like to have people not paying attention, looking for you, and just knowing what it's like to actually ride a motorcycle.
All right, now let's talk about you. What's your current ride? What do you got in the garage?
So we've got the bike that people are probably most familiar seeing me on is a 2007 Ultra Classic. That one just rolled over 115,000 miles a week or two ago. So it's hanging on. I've got the '03 Sportster that I got from my dad back in law school. It's been jumped up to a 1275, and it's got big cams and pop-up pistons and a couple other things on it. And then my wife's got a 2009, I think, BMW R1200R, which is a super great little bike, like a Swiss Army knife. You can kind of do a little bit of everything. But the bike that, if people ask me, what kind of bike you have, I usually tell them I've got a Triumph. I have a 2012 Triumph Street Triple, which I bought a couple of years ago, and it's just it's probably my favorite of the bunch. I've also got a 1971 SL 100 in the shed that's slowly making its way back together from being torn apart. I had a broken Kickstarter shaft, which meant cases had to come apart, and it was a whole deal. But eventually that thing will be back, and we'll have that to run around in the fields behind the house with. So.
Well, that's a real mixed bag. It's like you've got one of everything, something for each occasion.
Yeah, that was kind of, when I came off the Sportster, I knew I needed to get something a little bit bigger. Once I started working here, because we ride so much, I didn't want to necessarily try to do that on a Sportster. And I was really, really thinking about going to a Dyna, and then the Triumph came up, and I've always really, really enjoyed those bikes and thought they were super cool. And it was one of those, like, I didn't want to only ever have ridden Harleys my whole life, you know what I mean? I love the Harleys. I love the ones we've got. I think they're great bikes in a lot of respects, but I wanted to, have been somebody who's at least tried out other bikes, and, even if I don't like them, at least I can say I gave them a shot. But I really enjoyed the Triumph. My wife's Airhead, or I guess it's an oil head, is a super cool bike. I think, I've never ridden one I didn't like, I guess.
Yeah,
so
I understand that. Let's off list here though. But what about a dream bike? You have something you're always pined after, something you want?
I'd still like a Dyna, man. I've always wanted an FXR. I was really, really in the market for an FXR for a little while. It's kind of tough now because all the stunt guys are getting them, and they tend to either be like total cream puffs where they've been garage kept and I just can't afford them, or they tend to be like stunt bikes where they've been kind of torn up. And there's just a premium on those bikes because they're not making any more of them. Really, really like to get an FXR. I wouldn't even mind like an FXD or something like that. But otherwise, no. I think we got a good mix at the house. After doing Colorado and back a couple of years ago, it was like, I totally see the value of having a bagger. I think I'll probably keep something like that, something comfortable in there. I'll probably never get rid of the Sportster just because that's, Dad's first bike after a really long time, and then it was my first bike, and then it was my wife's first bike. So dream bike though, yeah, I could definitely see myself going, I'd like to do a hopped up Dyna, something kind of hot rod, not necessarily great for ripping back and forth across the country, but something I could do back and forth across the state.
It's doable.
I mean, it's doable. I rode a Sportster from Charlotte to Santa Monica and back, so it can be done. I'm not saying it'll be done super comfortably, but yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a hot rod Dyna. That's probably a good, solid dream bike, I would say.
Right on. Well, talking about riding and some of that, do you have favorite roads around here, or just even area to ride?
I'm a big fan of riding in the mountains. It's tough being in Raleigh because I'm a little bit far away from some of the stuff that I really know that I like. We've got Beaver Dam Road here in Wake County. That's kind of a Wake County classic, and I'm fortunate enough to live like less than 10 minutes away from it, so I can do that one. On this side of the country, probably like US 33 between Virginia and West Virginia, outside of Massanutten, Virginia. That's probably one of my favorite roads in the country. But otherwise, man, I really like riding out west. Anybody who's got a motorcycle should try to ride around in the desert for a while. It's an experience.
As long as you've got extra gas and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can always just cross your fingers. That's what I do. Hope the bike gets there.
That's solid.
Yeah. Hasn't let me down yet.
Well, what about motorcycle trips? Do you have anything left on your bucket list or anything like that? Places that you would like to get two wheels and get out there?
So I've never ridden in the Northeast, really, even though I grew up in West Virginia, Pennsylvania. I've never done any in New England, so I'd like to see that. Maybe even like, Nova Scotia and some of southeastern Canada. I've also never been super far out west, northwest, I should say, on a bike. So I'm a little bit limited to the strip of the U.S. I've been to. I'd be interested in riding overseas too, to be honest with you. Iceland is supposed to have some really, really cool stuff, and even some of the the Scottish hills and junk like that. But there's so much cool stuff to see here that I'll worry about that stuff later on, man. Just being able to go northeast, I think, would be a cool trip. We're going to try to do the northwest trip that we had planned last year because the itinerary is already there. We just got to get a couple of weeks together to do it, and hopefully the wildfires hold off and let us get it done this time. So that'd be a good one. But yeah, man, just trying to knock off all 50, I guess. I got a buddy that lives in Alaska. It might be cool to try to ride up there and see him.
Man, I'm telling you, that would really be an adventure there. Do some off road, or you'd have to have an adventure bike for that.
I would think. I've seen recently some dudes did all the way southern tip of Alaska to the northern tip of Alaska on like a CT70 or something. So apparently it can be done
if you've got the extra time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, what about advice to motorcyclists? As the firm that rides, what would you say to motorcyclists out there to give them some advice?
If you ever find yourself in the unfortunate situation where you've been in a wreck, get as much information at that wreck scene as you can. I know that's not always the most practical advice because you are probably hurt, but if you've got people with you, if you're with somebody who's been in a wreck, try to get photos, names and phone numbers of everybody that's out there. The more information you can get, me or whichever attorney you end up using if you need one, the better you can kind of place us in that scene. It makes the whole process move a little bit smoother because it's the burden is on us as the injured party to prove that the wreck happened the way that we say it did. So the more information we can get about how the scene looked and everything like that, you'd be surprised how often witness phone numbers and names don't wind up in the police report, things like that. So the more information you can get while you're out there is more and more helpful for us. Prior to the wreck, best thing you can do is carry as much uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage as you can. If you don't know what that is, please feel free to contact my office. I'll be happy to talk to you about it for absolutely no charge. I'll review your insurance declarations pages, make sure that you've got the correct coverage and what you need. If you do, I'll let you know that too. I'm not going to try to sell you insurance. We don't work with any insurance carriers. It's just you can't retroactively put that coverage on, and I can't make coverage up out of whole cloth. So if you get involved in a wreck with somebody with really limited or no coverage, it can be a very, very difficult situation. So my best advice is make sure your insurance is right before you go out on your next ride. Contact me if you're not sure what you should have. And if you're ever unfortunately in a wreck, get as much information at that scene as you possibly can.
And now, as we come to the end of this interview, the burning question that everybody wants to know the answer from you personally: is it the destination or the ride?
It's got to be the ride, right? 'Cause you can go anywhere, but you can have like a real good time on the way there or not. I would say it's definitely got to be the ride more than the destination.